Hello there all my lovely jewelry makers, I'm Christina of CSLdesigns, and in today's tutorial I'm going to show you how to make these cute celestial charms, and you can use them for earrings, necklaces, a bracelet or anything else you can think of. So if you want to learn how, then keep watching. So to make our charms, first of all we're going to need our wire, and the wire that I'm using is a regular round copper wire and the gauge is a 0.8mm, and for one of the designs we also need a 0.4mm, which is a weaving wire, and for that same design I'm also using a 3mm bicone bead. So of course you can use whatever kind of bead you want to. I just find the bicones add a lovely sparkle. As for the tools, I've got my flush cutters here so we can of course cut our wire, tweezing nose pliers to help manipulate the wire, and then I'm using these chain nose pliers to also help manipulate the wire, and finally I've got my 6-step bell making pliers. And now for the moon charm, I'm using a length of the 0.8mm of about 10 centimeters. What we're going to do is start with my 6-step bell making pliers. Again, you can use round nose pliers, it's completely up to you. So what I'm going to be using though is the third largest step on these to begin with, and I want to place them a couple of centimeters in from one end, and then we just need to push the ends around the pliers here, but not all the way to complete a full circle. We want them to go towards the same direction there, but also start to slightly overlap each other. And then we're at that point, we now need to put some bends into, because this is going to be the inner part of the crescent. So I'm going to place my pliers on one side where it starts to go from curved to straight, and then push that end here, this is the short one in this case, back over the top of the pliers, so back on itself. So you can see we have that, and then when I flip it, it's going to look like that. Now what we want to do is close this up, so just hold it however you need to, and then you want to place it right at the back of the pliers and start to tighten it so that we end up with no gap between the wires there. So that's one side. Same thing with the other end where the wire starts to go from the curve to the straight point. I'm going to place my pliers and then bend the wire back on itself over the top of the pliers, and again we have that open gap. We want to just close that up, so put that bend at the back of your pliers and squeeze it tight, so again we don't have that gap anymore. Now what I just want to do is pull out these wires a little bit, just kind of slightly open them up to something like that, because then we need to start making the back part, you could say, of the crescent, so the larger area. And what I like to do is put my fingers on the part that I've already made here, so that keeps its shape, and then I hold this longer end of the wire further out because that will give it more of a curve, and I start to bring it around towards the other short wire basically, and I'm going to make sure it comes underneath, and the goal is to just get a nice curve that's going to be larger than the first one we made with the pliers. So just keep working your way until you get to the point where the wires are meeting back up there at the top, they're basically crossing over each other, and you're also happy with how the shape looks. So then from here I'm going to place my pliers on that back wire, that's the longer one, basically where the wires overlap, and bend that straight upwards so that when we look from the front it's going straight up from the top of the crescent there. And then from there we want to just use this short tail that we have left that's naturally going over the front of the long wire there to just attach the whole thing together. So I put my pliers on the shape, and then I just want to start bringing this length around the wire that's coming straight up there, to basically wrap it around a couple of times, and that's just to secure it in place. And then we can flip it to the back, cut off the excess, and then just make sure to squeeze down that end of the wire, and then we can use this wire at the top here to make a loop so we can use it as a charm. So I'm just going to grab onto the wire that's coming out of the wraps there, bend it towards the front, and then you can use round nose pliers, but I'm just going to use my 6-step bell making pliers and place them on the bend, push the wire all the way around, bring it all the way to the front there to create a full circle. It looks a little something like that. Now we need to cut off the excess, and make sure to cut it off where the wire overlaps basically, so that when it's cut we still have a full circle. So we close it up. You can open and close this like a jump ring because there's an open loop. Then we have a full circle there, and you can now add it to whatever you want to and have it as a cute moon charm. For the star charm, I'm using a length of a 0.8mm of about 10 centimeters, and I'm then going to take my chain nose pliers here because I'm going to use the exact width of the pliers to help me make the star as symmetrical as possible. So I'm going to place my pliers roughly in the middle of the wire here, and then I want to first of all just bend one side slightly against the pliers like that, so not too much, just a slight angle, and then the other end I'm going to bend against the other side of the pliers, and this needs to be more of an angle, not fully 90 degree but almost. And then what I like to do is go to the other side of the bend that I just did here and just squeeze the wire on either side of that bend. It just tightens it up nicely and makes it a little bit sharper. And then what we're going to be doing now is making the first point in the star. So I'm placing my pliers on the other side of the bend I just did, literally right up against it, and then I want to bend the wire against the pliers again all the way back downwards so we get a nice point like that. And again I go on the other side of that bend and just squeeze back and forth a couple of times to help sharpen up that point, and then place your pliers right up against the bend that we just made on the other side of it there. And then the wire, we need to bend it back outwards. And then what we need to achieve now is a straight line across the bottom of this point. So this little length we have on the other side, and then the length here that we just bent. And again, I'm just going to sharpen it by going on both sides of the bend. And you can see we have that straight line where we just have the point. Now I'm going to place my pliers right up against the bend we just did. And then I'm going to make the next point. So I'm going to push the wire against the pliers again, bring it back downwards. So you can see we create another point there, sharpen that up, and then bend the wire back outwards. And again, get that straight line from one side of the point to the other. And then we just have that point breaking it up. Moving on to the next one, repeat the same thing. So we're basically working our way around the star here, one point at a time. Bring it back out to create that straight line. So I now have 3 complete points, working our way back upwards towards the beginning. Gonna make the 4th one here, and again sharpen it up. And now where we need to make the next point here is actually going to be created from both ends of the wire. So I'm just going to push the wire against the pliers and again achieve that straight line across the bottom of that point we just made. So we end up with something like this. You can see the wires are getting close to each other there. Then what I just want to do is the end that we've been working with to make the star. Again, I'm going to place my pliers right up against the previous bend, and then taking this end, bending against the plier again, but this time just straight out to the side, and I'm going over the top of the other wire. And you can see we basically finished off that last point there. So we now have the full shape of the star. And then what I'm going to do is place my pliers on the star just below that crossover point to make sure the star holds its shape, while I then take this end that we've been working with and I wrap it around the other length of wire. So just wrapping it to fasten it in place just a couple of times. So there we have the final star. And then we just need to get rid of the excess. So cut off the excess on the back and then make sure to just squeeze that in so it's not sticking out. And then I'm just going to grab the wire at the top right where it's coming out from those wraps and push it forward so it comes out like that at an angle. Then I'm taking my 6-step bell making pliers. Of course you can use round nose pliers, and I'm just going to be making an open loop. You can also make a wrap loop. So bring the length around your pliers all the way so we end up with a full circle like that. And then go in and cut off the excess, making sure that once it's cut we still have that full circle. So cut it where it basically overlaps itself, and then we have the open loop that you can attach to whatever you want to, and it functions as a cute little star charm. For the sun charm, I'm using a length of the 0.8mm of about 10 centimeters and also a length of 0.4mm of about 25 centimeters. So I'm starting with my 0.8mm length here, and I'm then going to grab my chain nose pliers because first of all we want to make a wrap loop. So I'm just placing my pliers roughly in the middle of my wire here, then make about a 90-degree bend. Then I take my 6-step bell making pliers. I'm just using the second smallest size. You can use round nose pliers. Then placing them on that bend, bring the wire back around all the way so we get a full circle like that. And then I just want to make that a wrap loop, so I'm going to just put my pliers onto the loop and then bring that end of the wire around the other end a couple of times just to secure it in place. And then I'm just going to grab my flush cutters to cut off the excess there. Get that out of the way and just make sure to squeeze that tight so it's not sticking out and can catch or scratch on anything. So here we then have our base ready. I'm then going to grab my length of 0.4mm here, and we want to attach it first of all. So I'm going in from the front and just putting a short length through the loop there just to hold on to. Then I want to wrap this around the base wire that's creating the loop a couple of times. So just go back through the loop there in the same direction. So come up through here and then do another wrap. So go up through again in that same direction. So I now have 2 wraps around the base wire in the loop. Now before I make another wrap, I want to bring in my chain nose pliers again, and here I'm going to be using the width of the pliers themselves to help make my piece symmetrical. You can also measure if you want to. So I'm going to take my pliers and place them right up against where the wraps are, and in this case I'm going to be using 1.5 width of the pliers. So just place them up against and then go out half a width further, and then bring this 0.4mm wire down behind the pliers and again go to do another wrap. So we need to come up through the loop again, and I'm keeping hold of the 0.4mm with the pliers the whole time, bringing it all the way through, and then I just want to bring it around to start the next wrap again. So just bring it back around to the back while I've still got my pliers in to make sure that I keep that length of wire in place. And now that I have that, we can remove the pliers and then just do a couple of wraps. So again, bring the wire up through the loop and then push your wraps here around that loop with the base wire nice and tight together. I want to come up through again so we have 2 full loops. loops like that. So you can see we're doing wraps all the way along, and then just every now and then we're going to add a little length of wire that's sticking out further from those wraps. And I'm just going to keep pushing them up so they're nice and tight towards where we started out. And I've then done the 2 wraps, so I'm going to bring in my pliers again using the width of the pliers. Now this length I want to be a bit longer, so put the pliers right up against the wraps once, and then I'm going to go out one more full width. So this one is going to be a bit longer than the first one. Otherwise, same principle, bring that back down behind the pliers and then come up through the loop with the wire, and then just start to bring the wire back around. So we start our next wrap, we can remove the pliers and then do 2 wraps again here. So come up through the loop once and twice and pull them nice and tight. Make sure they're pushed close together as well. So there you can see we have 2 lengths of wire coming out from all the wraps there that we're making around the inner circle, and I'm going to be doing 2 wraps in between each of them. So again, I've just done the 2 wrap. That means I'm in position to do the next length of wire that's sticking out, and again this one I want to be shorter, so I'm going to be alternating the size as well. So short, long, short, long. Of course you can do whatever you want to, you can make them all the same length as well. So this one is going to be 1.5. Bring the wire down and come up through the loop, pull it all the way through, and then straight away start the next wrap and do 2 full wraps in between. So 1 and 2, and we're in position for the next length of wire sticking out. This one is going to be longer, so that's 2 full widths. So 1, 2, bring the wire down, and then we're basically just going to repeat this until we make it all the way back up to the top. And now continued, and we're back at the top. You just need to do the final wraps there as well. So bring it through like all the other times. Make sure the wrap is nice and tight, and then I'm just going to leave the tails there for now. So now what we need to do is go back around and deal with these wires that are sticking out. So I'm going to grab my chain nose pliers again and just start from one side. It doesn't matter where you start from. Make sure you go at the very tip of the pliers and grab onto the very tip of the length of the wire there that's sticking out, as close to the tip as you can, but obviously still holding on to it. And then we need to start twisting it, because we do have 2 wires going next to each other, even though it is one length, but because it's bent. So you just want to twist it here, and this is going to give it more strength and make the individual rays here more sturdy. So twist it a couple of times until you like the way it looks, then move on to the next one. Now this is a bit longer, but same principle. Grab onto the very tip and then just twist it until we have a nice even twist from where the wraps are until the very point there, and it's nice and sturdy. So something like that. Move on and continue this all the way around until it looks a little something like that. Then if you want to add in a bead, of course you don't have to, but if you want to, we can just take one of the lengths here, add a bead onto it, let it drop all the way down, and then that's going to sit across the front like that sideways. So I want to bring my wire down through the loop there, the circle in the middle, and then just pull that through, making sure the bead is going to sit sideways, and the bead acts as a stopper as well. And then I'm bringing the wire around the outside of the loop and then going back through the bead, but in the opposite direction, and pull it through. And then as we pull it tight, the wire here is going to just sit nicely around that circle that we made and just blend in nicely with all the wraps that we already have. And that's then added in our bead. Now all we got to do is finish off the ends of the point formula, and it's the same with both of them. So just make sure that your wire is wrapped around the base wire once or twice, and then go in and cut off the excess like that. And you just want to make sure that that end that's left is not sticking out, so you can catch or scratch on anything. And then just finish off the other one in the same way. And then the last thing to do is make a loop at the top. So grab your chain nose pliers, and then I'm just going to place them right above where those wraps are. Bend the length of wire we have left forward, and then I'm using my 6-tip bell knife pliers. You can also use round nose pliers to place them right on the bend there, and then bring the wire all the way back around the pliers back towards the front here. So we end up with a full circle like that. Then just go in and cut off the excess. Now cut off the wire where it basically overlaps itself, so that when it's cut, we still have a full circle when we close up the loop here, and then we have our sun charm ready to use. Then you can take your charms, open up the loop and attach them to a chain to make a really cute bracelet, or of course use them for whatever you'd like to. And that is how you make these celestial themed charms. I really hope you enjoyed the tutorial. Thank you so much for watching it, and I'll see you in the next one.